Disney PR. There's a lot to talk about in regard to the public relations situation going on at the Walt Disney Company lately, in regards to the parks, in regards to the studio. We're going to dive right in and discuss it up next. Hey everybody, welcome aboard to another episode of Orange Grove 55. I got my fantastic panel with me again today. I'm going to introduce my panel and we're going to dive into this Disney PR situation going on with the company. But first, I'm going to introduce Mr. Vash Sky, host of Freshly Squeezed. Dre, how you doing today, brother?
Doing pretty good. Getting over the Rona. Unfortunately, it did decide to tap me on the shoulder this past week. So, trying to get over it. It's why you haven't seen much of me. Unfortunately, it's because it's having to recoup from that. But feeling pretty good. Like I said, I'm up. I'm at 'em. I'm extremely excited to do this. To talk about this topic. And if I cut out for a little bit, it's probably because I'm coughing or doing something else. So please excuse me.
Oh, no worries. I'm glad you look and sound great, by the way. So you sound like, it seems like you're recovering very well, and that's great news, Dre. And we got Grogu over here. He's masked up, man. He's masked up and vaccinated, so he's good. He's good.
He's good.
He's good. But no, in all seriousness, I'm glad to hear that you're doing very well, sir. That's fantastic news.
Thank you. It was, it sucked. It sucked when the results came back. It did, but you guys did a lot to help me through it, so I really do appreciate you sticking by me. Thank you.
No, we love you, brother. We love you, brother. And down below is our family man, our resident family man, George, the Disney Family Man 23, host of Citrus Corner here on OG 55. George, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, and so far, no Rona for me.
Yeah, knock on that wood, buddy, because everyone's getting it.
But yeah, definitely glad to see Vash, you're doing much better. You look good, you sound good, and definitely glad to have you back.
Good to be back. Good to be here. It's unfortunate because every single time we start getting back and we're getting back into the grind, something happens, and it takes us away. But I'm really glad to be here with my brothers here. This is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm very interested in today's topic.
Yes, absolutely. Let's without further ado, let's dive right in. So the topic of today is Disney PR. Disney PR. Now there has been, first and foremost, I just want to I want to kind of address how I came up with this topic of the video. I was watching these gentlemen last night, the Fresh Baked Podcast with Ron and Dave, and they kind of touched upon this for a few minutes in regards to Disney's kind of PR problems. And it inspired me, honestly, to be quite honest with you. I wanted to talk. I kind of wanted to deep dive into this issue because I do think that there is an issue, a problem with the public relations approach with Disney. A lot of it is their fault. I think some of it isn't their fault, but we're going to kind of dive into it. But we're going to split this up into two different segments, right? So the first part will be the public relations in regards to the parks, the theme parks. And then the second half of the video will be the public relations in regards to the studio side of the company. So just so you guys are aware. All right. So let's dive into the PR in regards to the parks. Dre. What are your overall thoughts in regards to the PR for the parks? Kick us off.
I mean, not good. That's kind of the easiest way to go about it. I mean, they've been getting hit on all sides.
How you really feel?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it hasn't been doing all that well. If we can look, broad across the entire division, right? The cruise lines have been getting hit simply because of their association with that industry and what that industry's been going through. They've been modifying services on board those ships, and it's hurt from that respect. When it comes to the parks themselves, a lot of what's going on in the parks is actually merchandise related, which is very interesting. We saw most recently big lines for a particular product inside of one of Walt Disney World's theme parks at Epcot. And, it's... They've implemented policies to try to prevent people from picking up multiple, variant, multiple copies of whatever merchandise product that they're selling. But you see those long lines for that Figment popcorn bucket, and you see all the talk online, and it's just not good. The company's definitely not generating goodwill in that respect. You see what's going on at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And I believe it's going on at Disneyland as well. This, with the lack of sheaths for these Star Wars lightsabers at Savi's workshop. It's you're just seeing it from all over the place. And what's profound about it is, people before online on Diz Twitter and so forth, they used to really be in Disney's camp, and there would at least be a contingent that would defend them in what they would do, or at least provide an explanation as to why these things were happening. But as Dave from Fresh Baked said on his show, it's become very fashionable to rag on Disney as much as humanly possible, so to speak. It's gotten a lot of cachet with a lot of big time influencers and creators and so forth, and people are kind of on this train, and it's really unfortunate to see, because it didn't always used to be this way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it hasn't always been this way. And we're going to dive into it. I don't want to kind of jump the gun here, but I do have to mention the studio a little bit right now, just because I feel like it is kind of connected to this park segment. In my opinion, and Dave is absolutely correct in his assessment, it has become very fashionable to kind of crap on the company and criticize them and kind of jump on and pile on Disney. However, I wouldn't completely fault the current administration. I don't know what you call them, like Chapek and company. I think it kind of started, believe it or not, a little bit under Bob Iger. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I started to see, at least in the film community, a disdain for Disney with all these acquisitions, right? Pixar was cool. No one really seemed to bother it. Then Marvel, then Lucasfilm, and then Fox. And when Fox hit, I started to see a lot more animosity towards Disney as a whole in regards to monopoly, in regards to owning too much. And that's when I really started to see a lot of attacks on Disney. And it kind of bled into, the parks and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of part of the issue. They got really big, and it's, like the old saying says, it's kind of lonely at the top, right? Whenever you're top dog, you're going to get the most heat, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. But you're right, though, Dre. Like, there's been so much. Like this guy right here. Let's talk about this guy, because this has been like the point of contention for the past few days. There's been a lot of talk about this guy. What was it? 7-hour waits to get this popcorn bucket.
Oh. It was literally all the way beyond the entrance of Epcot that circles around where all the construction walls are. It's baffling to me, because this is also the issue that's going on with just Walt Disney World's 50th right now. It's like everything is so projected to these specialty merchandise items that it loses the focus of what the 50th celebration is all about. When on October 1st, everyone was in line for 9 hours to get into the Emporium, and they're fighting over these 50th limited edition tumblers. It's like, it's ridiculous. And now I believe someone just posted online that they said that they are now having a shortage of Figment, and they don't know when more is going to come in. And everyone is like jumping on Disney for it, because it's like, okay, they have plans to go next Friday, and will they still have them? And this is kind of where I go like back and forth, where as far as like with PR of like distribution and marketing and everything on Disney's side, is they say, oh, limit 2, but then you see these people walking with garbage bags hand to hand with 24 Figment popcorn buckets. And now, mind you, too, and honestly, I can't believe I have to stick up for Chapek in this instance. Now, there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of things that I disagree with Chapek on. But I have to say that the same people that proclaim, oh, he's all about the money, oh, he's all about the almighty dollar, these are the same people that are overbuying these items and putting them on for 5 times the amount on eBay. I mean, how big of a contradiction is that?
Well, yeah, it's funny to me. You're right, George. I mean, I see a lot of fans saying that Chapek is so greedy, and then they buy 30 of these Figments and then sell them on eBay for $1,000 a piece. It's a little hard, to take people like that seriously.
31 bids. And it wasn't over yet. It reached $1,075.60.
That's wild. That's wild. Now, I want to ask you fellas, in regards to the popcorn bucket, because, I mean, it really was a PR mess for Disney. Whether some of it was their fault, some of it really wasn't. Regardless, it was still a PR mess. Dre, I'll start with you. How would you have kind of mitigated this PR mess with this popcorn bucket? If you were in charge, you had carte blanche, you can do what you want. How would you have kind of addressed this issue so there wouldn't be as much of a public relations nightmare in regards to these?
I mean, it's a tough thing, when you have extremely limited supply. Let me share you my screen here.
Okay.
Just to fully get around what kind of issue this was. There we go. And that's what's going on right there. I mean, it was you're at massive demand there.
Yeah.
And there's not really a whole lot you can do. Simply because supply is so limited, especially right now. It would be difficult to completely saturate that amount of demand in normal conditions, but now it's almost impossible. I suppose what you could do, or you could do a couple of things. You could do maybe like a sweepstakes where you go down to someplace, whether it be in the park or virtual, and you sign up for the ability to buy one at a certain point. A lot of, I've been trying to get myself a graphics card for quite some time, and some of the graphic cards sellers, that's what they had to inevitably do because of bots and other kinds of things that were hurting the process for customers who wanted such item, right? So you could have a sweepstakes kind of thing. You could limit maybe one of these per pass holder or per ticket holder. So you kind of had to present your ticket or your annual pass in order to get one. That way, once yours is fulfilled, that's it. And that could have stemmed, people walking away with a bunch of these. Here, we'll see if I can show you this, just like that. Yeah, you see this, and it's just like, could we? Is there a way we could have mitigated that? Yeah. Is there a way we could have prevented that from actually occurring? I think so, right? I think we can look up, creative solutions as to prevent this from happening ever again. Like I said, like associating your annual pass or your Magic Key or whatever they're calling it at Walt Disney World, right, with a purchase, with this. So to speak, so that way, once your ticket's scanned, that's it. You can't buy any more, and that's going to be it. You could have a sweepstakes or raffle system. It's obviously people are going to be left holding the bag, but people don't want to see people holding these bags. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of the issue.
It really is kind of gross. I see pictures like this, and it really is like, it's just consumerism at its worst. It really is. It really is gross to watch. And
it was honestly just. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, Dre is right. I think if Disney would enforce the limitations better, I think, like you said, they did have a limitation on it, but they weren't enforcing it. They need to enforce it.
Yeah,
you
they
know?
always say it's limit 2, and then as you can see, this happens. And the same thing happened with when they first announced Splash Mountain was going to be rethemed, and they came out with the specialty plush dolls of Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear. And literally, between Facebook and Twitter, it was like piled up seeing these people, multiple people carrying multiple bags of these stuffed animals from Splash Mountain, and you couldn't even go down. And to kind of echo Dre, I believe that you should have to present your pass or your ticket. That's it. It's I'm picking up for this person. No, if they're not present with their ticket or their pass, I'm sorry, I hate to say it, tough shit.
Yeah.
We were hearing. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. And second of all, I think in a way Disney kind of already has an implementation behind the scenes of how they're trying to fix this. And honestly, I think that's through, and I hate to really say this, through the annual passes. Because I guarantee you about probably 85% of those people in line are annual pass holders, because they would have to be more so Florida locals, because they'd have to be there at the right time in order to be in line getting those buckets. And this is where I can understand Disney in a way when they want to lean more towards a person buying maybe like a 5-day ticket. Because what if someone was traveling with their family on vacation to go down for the Festival of the Arts? They want to get the popcorn bucket to, show that. But no, then you have these Florida residents and annual pass holders that go in every single day to take pictures and do vlogging, and they end up buying. And I'm not talking about, let me rephrase that, not like the popular vloggers. I mean like the people that are more so just trying to make $1, and it's like they capitalize on that. So it's like, oh, we'll bang for our buck. Let's buy 15 popcorn buckets and not think nothing of it. Well, in a consumer's point, that's great as far as, selling the product and the item. For a PR standpoint, it's a mess.
It is a mess. You're right, George. I mean, in a sense, like, this is part of the problem with this like annual pass magic-y culture that we're seeing right now. And this is probably why Disney's really implementing that reservation system and limiting that portion of the fan base in the parks because of stuff like this. They're trying to even the playing field a little bit for these tourists so that the tourists can get, have a chance at some of this stuff, I don't know how successful that's been, but I think that's part of the mindset over at Disney. But what are your thoughts, Dre, on that in terms of like this culture of like kind of just this like hoarding of the, you have an annual pass, you're going to go in, you're going to hoard the merchandise. What are your feelings on all this?
I mean, it's something that I do apologize. It's something that the company has been looking to kind of tamp down on a little bit, going back a number of years. Even recently, within the last couple of months, I've heard word that the company is really trying to get a handle on resellers and people taking their annual pass discount, right? Taking that 15, 10, 20%, whatever that happens to be on any given merchandise item. And, taking that item and selling it on their online stores or whatever. They've really, from what I have heard, they've really been trying to quell that, so to speak.
Is that including like eBay? Like, is Disney in cahoots with these companies that if someone were to post like a picture of what they're selling and it's like, it sends like eBay an alert to say, no, this is a restricted item. You have to take it down or we'll remove it for you, sort of thing.
From what I've heard, the way they do it is if you buy multiples of the same item, they know it, right? And there's a certain threshold that gets flagged, whether it be maybe 8, 10, 12, whatever it happens to be, that, they say, hey, they reach out and go, because they have all your information on file, they say, let's not have this happen again, kind of thing. Because now it's getting abusive. you walking away with not just 2 or 3, but the quantities described earlier, 8, 10, 12, that kind of thing. And that's how they've been kind of tamping down this. They've even threatened to pull people's annual passes completely if they don't actually change their course of behavior. So, from what I have heard, they're looking into kind of coming up with creative solutions to mitigate this kind of stuff. But when you see this so flagrantly, I don't know. It just, it just puts a bad taste in people's mouth because, I know that the initial reaction I had is like, dude, you're allowing this kind of stuff because you want sell through.
Yeah.
And it's like, unfortunately, I mean, like from a consumer products perspective, it's like, yeah, like this is awesome because we just get to sell through all of our product and we just have incalculable demand and, tough shit for the rest of you. But for everybody else, these practices, they do sully a lot of fans and their associations with the mouse and that kind of thing, and maybe that hurts enthusiasm for products going down the road. It's definitely something that they have to tighten their grip on, so to speak, a little bit more than they are.
What baffles me is like the morning of when they open up the line and they start selling it immediately. Like you go on eBay and you see literally like 2 pages. Like if you type in the item, 2 pages, and you just click on it, and it just makes me think that if you literally have 2 pages on eBay with the same item right out of the gate, then that means like the first 24 people that are in line basically just bought what they were expected to buy, and now it's on their eBay account.
Yeah. It's a major problem. It's a major problem. And this kind of dovetails and is definitely interwoven and connected to the reservation system and Disney's desire, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying this like as a fact, but this is my opinion. I think it's interconnected with Disney's desire to limit the amount of annual passes, which they're doing, and magic keys, and really kind of tighten like the calendar, right? Like a lot of fans wonder, like, well, why are they restricting magic keys so much and not letting magic key people, why are they favoring these day ticket or multi-day ticket or hotel stay people more than us? Well, this is why. In a lot of ways, this is exactly the reason why. And it's really a problem because it creates a PR mess for Disney, because then you have all the locals and the Magic Key people complaining online, like we can't get in, yada, yada, yada. It creates a public relations mess. It's a whole cycle. All this stuff is like an ecosystem. It's all connected, and it creates problems for Disney and their PR, and it creates problems for the locals and the Magic Key people and the annual pass holders. And it's a really hard knot to untie. I mean, there comes a point where it's like, what do you do? Because like as a business, any business would love to see this kind of demand, but it's demand at the expense of other customers too, though, and Disney has to address it. It's a really complicated issue, and I really don't know what they can do to really rectify this.
I do think as technology grows and the future progresses with these new ideals of like how we vacation and how we travel and whatnot, and especially through Disney, and I in a way I do really feel bad for PR for a certain point for Disney, because with all these extra add-ons, as you had mentioned, OG, with the reservation system, and can you imagine 7 hours for a popcorn bucket with a reservation system? Can you imagine without the reservation system? Like now it's like, in a way, there's like no turn back. There's a point of no return. And then you have Genie Plus that gets added to the mix, and you could imagine the PR nightmare with that, because if people are, purchasing Genie Plus ahead of time, expecting to go on these rides, buying individual Lightning Lane, the ride goes down, having to do returns. And it's like, and the way that, the future is going right now, it's like, I would not want to be in PR shoes dealing with all this.
I wouldn't either. It's a real hot mess. Go, Andre.
I mean, well, some of this stuff they've invited on themselves. I mean,
Yeah.
they could have laid that smack down on resellers years and years ago.
Yep.
But they didn't. And now you've kind of created this culture around this kind of stuff, and it's
like the point of no return. It's like once you create that beast, it's like you can't go back.
Exactly, it's the monster, right? It's you created the monster. Now it's kind of self-fulfilling. It's
you can't put the genie back in the bottle to stay on brand, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. and that's kind of the issue. It's
yeah.
It's kind of how you go about fixing these problems down the road, and I don't think that Disney's applied their full attention towards it, or as much as they should have, leading up to this kind of moment right here, and that brings me to another one with the lightsaber sheaths. It's we mentioned it before, but and like I said before, it's like you knew this was going to be a problem getting to this point. Like you could obviously stock an inventory running low. Why didn't you have processes in place for when that happened, rather than having to be shamed into doing something else? It's really quite strange, and that's the kind of thing that gets people to be very cynical and say, you're not doing what you should be doing to be looking out for your customers or guests.
I have to say that is definitely on Disney. It's like it had to take for people to go on Twitter to say, I'm upset, I wanted that specialty bag to go with my lightsaber. I'm already forking out so much for it. It literally had to take for that uproar for then Disney to comply, to say, oh, well, we'll knock this so much off. It's like, why not do that from the get? Why do you have to be told through, social media that it's like, okay, well, we tried to skate by it, but now since we got caught red-handed, we're going to have to do something about it. And this is why all three of us are in agreement with that. You vote with your wallet. You vote, you get on social media, you voice your opinion. Disney does listen to an extent. Like, they may not do anything about it, but they hear it.
well, they definitely hear you when you don't buy something. That's for sure. And especially in this new Disney that's run under Chapek. He is very data driven. He is very much about the consumer in regards to consumer trends and what the consumer is buying or not buying. I will say though, and again, this isn't like an excuse, but I'm seeing this issue kind of beyond Disney. Recently, I don't know if you guys saw a video I did recently in regards to the lightsaber plastic bag thing. A family member of mine bought a Canada Goose jacket. Now, these Canada Goose jackets are very expensive, far more expensive than a lightsaber. I mean, we're talking $1,900 to like $1,200. Usually, these jackets run. They're very expensive. They're like Arctic grade, like jackets. Okay. She bought one of these jackets online on the website, and they sent this jacket to her without a dust bag. And for those of you not at home, not aware of what a dust bag is, basically like with a jacket, like it's like a cover in case that you zip up, right? You put it in and you zip it up, and that's the dust bag. Well, this didn't come with that, and it was well over $1,000, this jacket. Now, we took a drive down to the closest Canada Goose store to us is in Costa Mesa, which is like an hour and a half away from where I live. And so we took the drive all the way down there, and we talked to the representative over at the Canada Goose store, and they were honest with us. They said, look, you know what? The online orders, we're just not giving people the dust bags because of supply chain issues. Now, we weren't told that, though. When we bought it online, there was no apology, there was no discount, there was nothing. Just like what Disney is doing. It wasn't like the Canada Goose wasn't compensating you at all for the lack of a dust bag. They were just saying, here's your jacket, and that was it. It wasn't until we went to the store and actually asked them that they kind of told us the situation. Now, this isn't an excusing Disney, but it does seem to be a thing that a lot of these companies are doing now, where they're just kind of like, there's this supply chain issue. they're kind of dealing with it on their end, but they're not really telling their customers. Now, that's not a good thing. I don't think it was good PR for Canada Goose to do that. And I don't think it's good PR for Disney to do that. But it does seem like this is like what these companies are doing. This is the MO right now. They're just kind of giving you what they can and not, it's kind of like lips are sealed. We're not going to.
If they can get away with it, they'll do it until you bring it to their, their attention, and they're like, oh, right. Well, this is the reason. This is why, yada, 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 the song and the dance.
But, exactly. there was something called the Disney difference back in the day, right? It was, Disney was not like other companies.
What is that now? What is the
so back in the day, in black and white television, there was something called the Disney difference. George, you're gonna find this amusing. No, but look, back in the day, Disney would go above and beyond, and they would kind of have this kind of quality of standard that that the rest of the industry was envious of. And now you just see Disney kind of, because at first with this, with the plastic sheets that they would be giving out, they said, "Oh, that's good enough. That's your sheath right there," and not offer any discount voucher, nothing. That was just what was included, and it's like, come on, like that's unacceptable. Yeah. There were ways to go about it. There were ways to make good on that level of customer experience, especially when you're talking about that kind of price point. Yeah. The fact that they didn't and had to be almost shamed into it. It's just, again, you've now indentured bad will, right. Even more so than before, and that's why when people look at some of the other situations, they're not standing with Disney because they've been given nothing to stand for. I mean, it's again, it's all about goodwill, and it's just that they're not inculcating it, and it's really unfortunate to see. What should have been done in that situation, if you didn't want to do a discount or do a voucher toward another product or whatever, you could have very simply done, hey, look, here's a coupon or a voucher for when it does come in.
Right.
Give this number a call. We'll send one out to you. That kind of thing. There were ways to creatively handle that solution, and the fact that they did the bare minimum of, which is essentially nothing. I would be concerned when it comes to the goodwill of the company.
No, your solution to that, Dre, is spot on. Is what they should have done is they should have said, hey, look, due to the situation right now in the world with the supply chain issues, which I think most people understand this is a real problem. But we're going to have to give you a plastic bag right now. We're going to take down your information. And when the supply chains open up again, you'll be sent the proper bag. And I think what you said is perfect. That's exactly it. It doesn't cost Disney much to send these out because let's be honest, most of the people buying these are local anyway. It's not like you're going to ship this out to Japan. You might have to, but most of these people are probably Magic Key people anyway. So it's probably local, Southern California, Northern Cali at best. It wouldn't cost Disney too much. And I think you're right. It would have gone a long way with just that kind of like that rapport to kind of have Disney acknowledge it and say, hey, look, we're going to make good on this. Right now you got the plastic, but you know what? We're going to mail out the real case, when they become available. And that would have been a great idea. And they missed the boat on that. And now they're having to kind of play catch up with because now it's reactionary, right? Now It's like, oh, now we got shit on Twitter. So now we got to sit there and backtrack and fix it,
And think about who would be buying these lightsabers from Savi's workshop right now. It wouldn't necessarily be the hardcores; it'd be the kind of the normies, normie park goers, if you will, who are listening to people like us and others who are saying, "You got to do this experience. This is great." So it's those kind of guests that general populace that Disney's really looking. To receive business from and to treat them like that. It's just unacceptable. Sorry, George, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. And honestly, with me being in retail and sales, we actually had to go through something like that during Christmas time. We had a open house holiday promotion, and for every person that comes in that spends 75 or more, they get a free holiday tote bag. It's a red tote with Santa's face on it, and it comes like with a Hallmark glass, a candle, I believe it was a blanket and what have you. Well, here, because of the supply and demand and the delivery and everything, they didn't come in during the promotion. So what we literally had to do was, we reassured them that they would be getting their holiday bag. We took their name and number and we gave them rain checks. And it's like we said, and we literally had to do like literally by phone call. And we had like 5 pages of people that we called, left messages, and they came in and they picked up their bags. I mean, it was like closer to the end of the holiday season, but they were still able to get the item that they were deserved coming in for the promotion.
It makes a difference. It makes a difference when somebody sees a company really, trying hard to fix something. There's been countless times that I've had with various countless companies where I've had an issue with their customer service, and then their representative was really helpful and would step in and try to make good on it. And it like you take there's this old saying in politics, right? Where never kind of always like take advantage of a crisis, so to speak. And I think that kind of applies here, where like these bad situations, like these supply chain issues are bad. It's a crisis. It's a problem. But there are opportunities as well for these companies to sort of kind of build stronger relationships with their customer base, because it does matter. Like I'm telling you, like if Disney would reach out and like what Dre was saying, like say, hey, look, we can't give it to you now. Supply chain issues beyond our control. We're going to mail out the bag to you. You strengthen that customer company bond, then the customer's like, wow, that's really cool. A lot of companies wouldn't do that, right? Canada Goose. A lot of companies wouldn't do that, but Disney's doing that. It's that, like what you said, it's the Disney difference. And I think that makes a big difference in people when they're thinking about the company going forward. Hey, you know what? Disney went that extra mile for me. I think it makes a huge difference. Absolutely.
I'm going to be more inclined to book a vacation. Or I'm going to be more inclined to evangelize about how my experience went. This is how these balls get rolling here, and the fact that they would abandon that, seemingly, is it's just unlike the Disney company.
It's almost like Disney kind of has this way about them of, I guess, in a way you could kind of say, kind of cocky, because they know that they have a plethora of fans that they have established over the years. And it's like they already feel like they built that foundation, and they want to have as many people come in as possible, but they kind of feel like maybe they don't have to go above and beyond anymore like they used to, because they feel like the quantity that they got in the fandom base is like, it's enough, But truth of the matter is, things always implode. When you reach all the way to that top, there's nowhere to go but drop down to the bottom again. And you have to be careful with that.
You do got to be careful with that. You always have to, with everything, with every business, you always have to like appreciate your fans, appreciate your fan base. And it can be a problem if you don't. It can be a definite problem if you don't. So,
well, there have been other PR disasters that have happened in the company's history, and because consumer relations were a little bit more improved than they are now, you did have people standing in Disney's camp. And unfortunately, a lot of their practices so far haven't really ingratiated that kind of consumer sentiment or those kind of consumer relationships or bonds. And when things are hitting the fan, as we move over to the studio side of things, you're finding less and less people in Disney's camp and arguing on their behalf in the court of public opinion. Again, if you work on those relationships, maybe that wouldn't be the case. But unfortunately, here we are. Go ahead, OG.
Well, one thing that I want to address before we move on to the studio thing is this reservation system, because I do think that is a PR that is tied to the PR thing, because Magic key holders hate this whole idea of a reservation system. Disney's in kind of a conundrum though right now with this, because I think that there is a real business need for it. I think that they really do want to limit the amount of locals that are using the park like a mall, like Westfield Anaheim, and popping in for lunch and leaving, and kind of congesting the park and ruining the experience for like once in a lifetime guests, right? I think there is a real concern here from Disney in regards to that. What can Disney do to sort of placate and kind of appease these pass holders that want no reservations, but also maintain the guest experience for people that are coming from Japan, Europe, Australia, China, overseas, and have that once in a lifetime visit and want to have a decent trip? Is there anything they can do, or are they kind of in a rock and a hard place?
I think the issue becomes level of access, is how frequently these annual pass holders or Magic Key holders can go. That's really been the source of contention going back several decades now. So I think you have to really look at mitigating access for those Magic Key holders, maybe increasing the cost of annual passes substantially. And
to remove the reservation system.
Yeah, if you are going to remove the reservation system. If you're not, I suppose you can keep things the same. The one thing I would say, which would help specifically the people that you talk about, OG, from Japan or something coming in, probably they might... The reservation system for ticket holders is a real kind of sticking point with a lot of people. Yeah. I know I spent some time in California last month at some pretty nice accommodations, right? Look, we all saw my broadcast from there, right? It was nice, all right. And speaking to other people staying at that property, you really got the sense that people either didn't know that there was a reservation system at all, that they had to weeks in advance have to book their stay at the Disneyland Resort, or they may have found about it too late and were restricted in actually visiting the Disneyland Resort, which is not what you want. Everybody staying at that resort hotel that I was staying at should be including a trip to Disneyland Resort in their vacation stays. And the fact that they're not, because they're being kept out via this reservation system that's supposed to work for everybody, that's not what you want. That is not good. I know there was an Asian family from Canada who they were down in California, I think, for like a week or something. They wanted to go to Disneyland more days, but because they had just learned about the reservation system at very short notice, they could only go one day. That's a big spender right there, and you're keeping those people out. Think about that. I mean, is this really benefiting the guest? Is this benefiting the bottom line in the way that they imagine it is? I'm hard pressed to say yes on that. I think it's more of a hindrance for those kind of folks than good.
Well, yeah, maybe they have to I hate to even say this, but maybe they have to reimagine what it means to be an annual pass holder, a Magic Key holder, and maybe this whole notion of a no blackout sort of pass, right? No blackout. Maybe that whole thing should go out the window. And maybe there should be a huge limitation on how many visits per year you can have, and set that straight and be transparent from the beginning and say, you only get 10 visits a year. You're only getting 10 a year, so make them count. Maybe you got to be transparent. But George, what do you think, sir, on this whole situation?
I think, as you had mentioned, Disney is stuck between a rock and a hard place. I think it's one of those situations where you try to please everyone at a certain point, but then you end up pleasing nobody.
Right.
And it just makes me wonder, and I and I hate to really say this in a sense that, because I'm a annual pass holder for both coasts, for Walt Disney World and Disneyland. It just makes me wonder if Disney is going to eventually, which it's already showing signs of how them limiting annual passes, that if they just do away with it completely and just keep everybody on like a level playing field. It's like, if you want to go 10 days, purchase a 10-day ticket. If you want to do 4 days, do a 4-day ticket. And I think, you won't have a whole lot of happy people, especially locals in both Florida and California. But again, you're not going to be able to appease everyone. But I also think it's more of a nightmare for Disneyland than Walt Disney World because of Disneyland size. Disneyland size has a lot to do with the congestion and how many people that they can withhold in the reservation system at once. And I think this is also to Disney's benefit as to why they're probably pushing the city of Anaheim for Disneyland forward. Because the bigger of the resort, the more people that they can hold at a time, that they can kind of have a better flowing system of how many people are going in each park, sort of like how Walt Disney World does it. Like, so many people go into Animal Kingdom, so many people go to Epcot. And a lot of times you don't really have that with Disneyland because you're kind of going back and forth between these two parks because it's the limited amount of space.
Well, and here's the thing too that we also have to acknowledge is that when you have a person that buys an annual pass or Magic Key and they go 3-4 times a week, even a couple times a week, even a couple times a month, Disney's losing money on that person. Like $1,400 a year is not that much. Like, you can't really even go on a cruise for a few days for that amount, let alone anything for an entire year. Try to go to Vegas for $1,400. It's never gonna. You're gonna be living on ramen and ice water, for their entire trip. $1,400 for the entire year, and for these people to go 3 and 4 times a week, Disney's losing money on those people. And is that sustainable long term? I don't think it is. And I think that's part of the processes here with Disney, in that we got to cut these people off. So, like, it's like the bar, it's not, the gentleman over here has had 5 drinks. You got to cut them off. I think it's kind of like getting to that point almost, and I think there has to be.
I'm telling you right now, if I go to Vegas and I spend $1,400 and all I get is ramen and ice water, they better be serving it in Jesus's sandal. That's all I'm.
George always comes with it, man. He always comes with it. I love you, George. I love you, man.
I don't know where you get this stuff from. Obviously $1,400 to get that amount of access. It's it's even still a pretty good deal, even if you work the reservation system correctly. That's why my thing is if you're gonna do away with the reservation system, you would have to instead probably you have to probably increase that price substantially.
Yeah.
And I could see modifications done to the Magic Key system, but I could also see them debuting like a $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 pass where people can go as much as they want, as long as they pay that kind of money. I know it's insane, but like OG says, I mean, it's
the thing too. This reservation system and even the Magic Key, it's still very new. It's still fresh. It's still a baby. So it's like, if them trying to tweak it, and as you said, Vash, it's possible that I think in time they may come with a $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 pass just for one, $7,000 just for one, and it's like you might as well should just like title it like Club 33. Like get in there, get in Club 33 along with that price.
Well, George,
it's Club 32. It's not quite there.
$5,000 will get you this guy right here on eBay.
See,
it's a deal, man. It's a deal. Buy it now. Make your bids. No, but in all seriousness,
that's literally something that someone would pay over $1,000. That's literally an annual pass price for a whole year at Walt Disney World for one popcorn bucket of Figment.
It's a lot of, as the millennials say, a lot of FOMO, a lot of fear of missing out. Like, look, the popcorn bucket is absolutely adorable. It's not worth the crap that people are going through to get it. I'm sorry, it's just not. You know,
it's a $25 popcorn bucket, and you're spending $1,000. I mean, who's benefiting that there? It's like,
yeah, it's a little much. But let's dive into the studio side of things, because this is even, I think, even honestly, believe it or not, even worse for Disney's PR than I think the parks. I mean, the parks definitely have like a Diz Twitter kind of like fandom issue online. But the studio side has really
they're dealing with actors with contracts and lawyers.
Right, exactly. And the Hollywood trades are getting involved and all kinds of stuff. So this is even a bigger problem. In terms of the studio side and the shit show that's been going on with the PR on that end, you had ScarJo, which was a huge problem. Dre, in terms of like this whole PR thing with the studio side, what are your thoughts? I know it's a loaded question, but like,
well,
you know.
Well, like we alluded to earlier, you know, when you go out and buy a Fox and you're a sizable portion of the annual box office, you're gonna have some power to throw around, and I think that's what you know, the Hollywood industry is most concerned about is. You know, you had to have a rapport or some cachet with Disney to make it big. Yeah. You know, that's kind of, they've become the de facto gatekeeper, so to speak. And so you have a lot of people who had a lot of power for a lot of years now seeing that wane in response to just how big the Mouse House is. I think that's where some frustrations from like Martin Scorsese are coming from. You know, where it's like, man, these guys, they dominate the box office every single year with these superhero films. And it's hard for others to break through, so to speak. Yeah. And that's definitely by design. But that's put a large target on their backs. We saw the ScarJo thing and how that all happened, and they just kept coming. And apparently it got to a point where, like, Chapek was going to stay on the course. He was going to go through and see this thing, you know, go through legally, but apparently, I guess he just was asked one too many times at some event or something like that. He was asked about it again. He's just beat down, and that's when he puts in the call. Hey, you know, handle this. You know, settle it out with ScarJo. This thing is not going away like I was assured it was.
And he definitely wants that Tower of Terror film to come through. So,
well, I think he's looking at the Tower of Terror film as like, this is a way to build back our reputation with Scarlett Johansson and sort of our like that mending public relations. Yeah, because that's kind of a symbol to the industry, right? That yes, ScarJo did things that we don't like, but we can still work with her. That's the symbolic link there. So from that standpoint, it's much bigger for them. But you know, it's a tough spot to be in for Disney right now.
It is, and like I said earlier on in the video, when it comes to the studio side, this snowball started, I think, under Bob Iger, and I think it's been fashionable really to hate Disney, at least in the film community, for kind of a long time now, you know, because I think that once Disney started to snatch up all these IPs from Pixar, Lucasfilm, Marvel, then Fox was really a fork in the road. That was really when I see a lot of the film community really starting to bite back against Disney. And they really started to express concerns of monopoly issues and things like that. And that was under Bob Iger. You know, and then once Chapek took over, who's not the charismatic, good talker that Bob Iger is, it just escalated immensely because now you have a villain, a real bad guy who we don't like his personality. He's not as smooth as the last guy. We have a real villain now we can focus on, and I think it just excelled and propelled. And then you had the ScarJo thing, which even amplified it, and it's all the rest is history. And really, Dre, you mentioned a great point with the cachet and the power that Disney has. If Disney decided tomorrow, you know what? We're abandoning theatrical. We're going to go all in on streaming. Everything from here on out will be D plus or Hulu. It could literally destroy the theater industry. Literally. Like, they have that much market share that would tank an entire industry. So there's a lot of invested interest in this. And you're right, there's a lot of power, in this. So it creates a lot of
animosity,
and not just with like film fans who are worried, but then you have people that are in the industry who are worried about, AMC and companies like that are like, well, what about us? Right. I mean, it leads to a lot of issues. Well, what do you think, George, in regards to the studio side?
Well, even like after what happened, like with ScarJo, I mean, Disney immediately sort of came back of like dealing with Emma Stone and, her contract and everything. And they immediately had to, address that issue, especially just coming off of the success of Cruella, and they're looking into a sequel on that. And, when you have these big time celebrities that are a powerhouse, but yet are well known, but they kind of bring in the cash load for Disney, whether it's film or television. Disney has to look at it through a scope, so to speak, of saying, well, how expendable are these people enough do we kind of give in, or do we kind of, play ball, so to speak? And, it's being in a tough situation, and especially with film, because as you had mentioned, OG, it has to go from dealing with people in the industry and then eventually leads to the public. So a lot of times you have to deal with HR and then it moves into PR, because, and that even happened a lot with, and I hate to bring it up, but like with Lasseter, you had a lot of issues going on within Pixar that wasn't mentioned before. HR had to step in, and then eventually, it could have hit into, thank God it didn't really hit as bad, to deal with the PR as far as when their films were released, because anybody could make a sour note on their films. You have actors that have done not so good things, and it affected their career, and it affected their television show or their films. And, that can play a major impact of, us as a society of what we watch.
No, yeah, the Lasseter thing was a huge deal. In terms of like the PR, for sure. There was a big push. I remember that. I think it was like back in 2018. There was a big push to fire him. Now, I personally am not a big fan of Lasseter in regards to Walt Disney Animation. He did great with Pixar. That was his baby. I think he sort of dropped the ball with Disney Animation because he tried to basically make another Pixar, which I didn't think worked. But that's besides the point. But I mean, in terms of his personal stuff with the studio, that was a huge deal. That was a huge PR thing a few years ago for Disney. And they ultimately decided to let him go. You're right. It goes from HR to PR. That's a great way to put it, George. That's a great way to put it. But the studio side has really been going through a lot, even more so than I think the parks lately. They've just been going through a lot with ScarJo, and just a lot of the film fans, a lot of the film industry has really latched on to Chapek, and they're not happy. They're not happy. And I don't know what they can really do, because look, I mean, it's easy to just be like, oh, Chapek just play ball. But Chapek's also looking at like Disney and trying to do what's best for Disney. And if Chapek really feels, and the board really feels, that they need this flexibility in regards to how they distribute their content, should they sacrifice the company for the betterment of the industry? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough call. It really is.
Like for like an example of what you're saying, like speaking hypothetically now.
Yeah.
If you were to have a situation, not saying it's necessarily a very bad one, whether it's Disney's fault or this person, but say it's Jon Favreau, he's a major impact of what's going on with Disney Plus and with Lucasfilm, and even in through Marvel, because he's done several things with Marvel. So if you put him into the equation, just as an example, how would you say Disney should go about doing it? Just based on your analogy of, do you sacrifice the company itself or the sake of, the product.
Right. Now you're saying if Favreau had like a personal scandal.
Yeah, like an issue like between sort of like how with ScarJo, but it's like
Right.
Favreau is more needed, within the company itself. So it's like, how do you go about handling that?
The way I've heard it before, and this goes back to the Lassiter thing. The way I heard about what really was the delineating line between whether to protect Lassiter or not was because of his recent success or failure. And that's really was the delineating line there, which was like, I don't know, that's kind of a scummy way to go about it. It's like, well, that the hits weren't as hits, so that, this lends more credence to what he's, been doing away from the camera, so to speak. And it's like,
I'm sorry. Cars 2 was brilliant.
Well, yeah, okay. Granted, right? But it's like, well, he either did it or he didn't do it, right?
Right.
And it's like, but that wasn't how they saw that whole situation. And I always thought that always rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe a poor choice of words at that moment. But, all right. My apologies. But when it comes to like somebody like Jon Favreau or somebody like that, it's like, it would just depend on the level of scandal and how much of an asset that he is at the company. Unfortunately, that's how they look at it. And when it comes to like
an asset than an ass,
I suppose so. And when it comes to either releasing stuff on streaming or in theaters, I think this is why Chapek recently came out and had his like 3 pillars. Right, the third pillar is audience driven. Right, what does the audience tell us about how to distribute these products and how in what format that they want these things in? And I think that's why he highlighted that so specifically, because to cynically look at it,
read that wrong. They were just aiming just for the parks and saying, oh, well, this is overpriced and this is overpriced, which I do understand. There are some things that are overpriced, but he was talking about the overall assumption of the company, which was also including with Disney Plus.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it's so he can look at it and go, we're not making any decisions. The audience is making the decision for us. Right. And implicate the audience in that kind of conversation. That way he doesn't have to talk to an AMC and defend his position. All he's going to do is just look at it and go, hey, a Spider-Man made this much while West Side Story made this much. This is why we're making the decisions to either release this product in your your theater or not. And I think that's where this is all going.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing too, is like a good friend of the channel, DSNY, who I absolutely love. Jack, he made a tweet recently saying like, well, if Chapek is all about the audience, then why doesn't he like fix the Genie Plus thing? But the thing that I think Jack misses on that point is that, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, and I'm not privy to the internal data at all, but we sort of live, all of us do, myself included. I am neck deep in this Disney stuff, okay? And I live in the bubble as well. But we kind of live in this echo chamber where we see people on social media complaining all the time about Lightning Lane, Genie Plus, yada, yada, yada. But what we're seeing on a daily basis is not necessarily what the average public is really complaining about. So when you say like, well, Chapek should look at the data and fix Genie Plus. Well, he might be looking at the data. Just because he's not looking at your tweets and your complaints on Twitter in that little bubble doesn't mean that he's not reacting. The data from the general public might be through the roof for Genie Plus. I don't know. I really don't, but he could.
That's a really good assumption, because a lot of the times when you do read the tweets and you read the comments,
right,
it's coming from those Disney fandom groups, know, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter. So so technically that isn't the full amount of data, that, if you take an encompass of everyone who is going. And maybe that is why Chapek is kind of leaning more towards that everyday family go buy a 5-day ticket, because that's the data.
That's the data. In our bubble, we're seeing a lot of complaints that Disney is focusing too much on franchises. Do you think the general public gives a shit about how many franchises are in the Disney parks? Not at all. They want that Marvel ride. They want the Frozen ride. They want the Minion ride. They want the Harry Potter ride. It's us in our little bubble that don't like it. But like when you're in the bubble, though, it feels like everyone's complaining about it. But the data probably is different on Chapek's desk than what we're seeing on Twitter. I think that there's a big gap, I think, between what the fandom is complaining about and what the actual data is. And that's why I think there's this kind of like sense of like Chapek not listening to us. Well, he is listening to you. He's not listening to the 12 people on Twitter, though. So
right.
That's the difference. You
have us as fans, and then you have GP, general public,
right.
The general public, and the general public has a radically different way of looking at these parks than we do. That's just the reality of it. And when Chapek talks about that third pillar, he's talking about the general public, because we've heard what he feels about us as hardcore fans. He calls us the legacy issue, right? That's what he refers to it as. Yeah. And sometimes our thoughts and beliefs and all that, they overlap with the GP, and that's why we get some certain things, and sometimes they don't. And that's why it's like, oh man, if they just did this. But it's like, yeah, but there's 18 million people a year visit, Magic Kingdom. It's not all going to be about you. And that's sometimes it's a hard lesson for fans to learn.
Yeah. And that is something that as fans, myself included, believe me, I'm deeper in this stuff than even a lot of people are, but we do have to recognize that we are not normal.
Yeah.
We are not normal.
I'm the spokesperson on that one.
We are not normal. And
what would be very interesting? I would love to get two people on. One person who is a diehard Disney fan, who is part of these groups, who's an annual pass holder that goes regularly, and then get a non-Disney overall person where they love Disney, they go to Disney maybe a couple times in their lifetime. And I'd really like to sit down and really go through how much, just on one day at the Magic Kingdom or Disneyland Park, how much that diehard annual pass fan person is, and just an everyday person. And that is honestly, just between those two people, that would give a little bit of an assumption of data of saying how much they would actually spend one day at a Disney park.
Yeah. Well, I actually do my own little, I don't want to call it research, but I kind of feel around a little bit at work. I use my coworkers as sort of like a litmus test as to where the general public, where the normies are, because they are not us at all. But they like Disney for sure. They like Universal. They like all the parks, but they're normies, So I'll throw it out there. So what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And just kind of gauge where they're at. And it's totally different. Totally different. Now, I will say this, though. In my research, the normies that I talk to at work also don't like the reservation system. So isn't that interesting? The normies. These aren't the fanatics. This isn't me and you. This is the normies. I'm not going to name them, obviously, but at my work, there are at least several that can't stand the reservation system, and they don't have magic keys. So that's very, very telling, actually.
I think there was a reason why you had Universal and Knott's and all these other parks drop it as soon as they were able to, right? Because I think for them it was an inhibitor to their business. Now Disney has unbelievable demand, which is why they can kind of get away with implementing a reservation-based system. And there are other attributes that Disney really likes about it, but it is kind of interesting. I have heard the same feeling that you have, OG, that the normies, they're not as enthused about this reservation system as you or I, because it just complicates a lot of things, even for them. And I talked about before how inhibited visitation rather than assisted in it. So
yeah. And those of you at home that are watching, if you're watching, you're definitely in our camp. But talk to your normie neighbors, talk to your normie coworkers, and kind of ask them, "What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" It's interesting because to break out of that echo chamber of our little bubble is very fascinating. Because sometimes you'll see they agree with us, but a lot of times you'll see it's complete opposite. Like when you're talking franchises and you tell a normie, "I wish Disney would not do the movie-based stuff," they look at you like you're a lunatic. What the fuck are you talking about? No. I want the Elsa ride. What are you talking about? That's exactly right. That's what they want. They don't care about Mystic Manor. They don't want that.
It's want that. It's so funny because you franchise. It's like we're not interested in franchises, right? We're not interested in IP driven product, right? And then I hear, oh, they should have an Encanto ride, and they should have this. It's like, what?
Right? Well, the freaking franchise.
Whereas, like, you have the normies walking around the parks, and I love this. Oh, we got to go to the haunted house. We got to go on the boat ride. And it's like they have names, and they have the correct names. And there's times where I have to sometimes literally walk away because I will walk up to a strange person, and I will correct them nicely. But I will correct them. It's like, it's the haunted mansion. If you want to get to the haunted mansion, you can.
Right.
That's great. No, Dre, you bring up a great point with the IP thing. And even like our good friend over here with the, let me bring him up again because he is a popular fella. Let me bring him up. This guy right here. It's an IP.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone wants to see him. I'm not familiar with Epcot, but everyone wants to see.
Well, and it's kind of funny because a lot of people thought he was going to go.
Right.
A lot of people thought he wasn't strong enough to withhold, because he didn't come from a movie. He didn't come from a television show. But his paw prints, so to speak, no pun intended, on Epcot, I mean, since like almost the beginning of the conception of the park, I mean, a lot of people know him, and especially now of the craze of these popcorn buckets, he has become literally the icon, the mascot of Epcot. And it's like, whether or not that they keep his ride there or not, which I think people would have a conniption if they don't. I think the character Figment himself will sustain within Epcot.
Well, and that's one of the things that we have to acknowledge in this new era of Disney being kind of a research data-driven company under Bob Chapek. These popcorn bucket sales are probably making a good case, for Figment's presence in the park. Let's just say that.
I think I made a tweet similar to that effect, like, you have this amazing, enthusiastic response for this character's popcorn bucket, yet the attraction's trash. Can't we at least get this to a point where, it's simpatico? I being data driven, or at least, looking at the GP and what they feel and what they associate with and what they get enthusiastic for can be valuable even to us, theme park fans, right?
Yeah.
If his, like you said, OG, like you alluded to, if his popcorn bucket is as popular as it is, well, that makes a brilliant case for maybe his attraction to get redone in a way that is appealing, not just for the crazy fans out there, but also to the general public, which I think if you were to ask the general public about his attraction, I think their views on it would echo what we feel.
And I think, honestly, a good way to kind of revitalize Figment and everything is to bring the Dreamfinder back in some way, and kind of bring that originality back, because where you saw Figment, you saw the Dreamfinder, and vice versa. So it's, it's kind of inevitable.
Why have one marketable character when you could have two?
Yeah. Now I did a video yesterday because this totally ties into public relations, and before we close it out, I just kind of wanted to address this because I think Chapek, he kind of is a walking public relations issue in a lot of ways, and as much
you think so,
a little bit, and as much as I defend him, or at least try to kind of see the gray area and the nuance and the decisions he makes, I have to acknowledge that there are issues with his approach. I made a video yesterday with a weird analogy that, like, I think that Bob Chapek should sort of take the Eminem approach when it comes to D23 Expo.
I love that
Eminem,
video, by the way.
I know, right? I know. Well, Eminem, if you guys watch 8 Mile or really listen to any of Eminem's music, his tactic is basically, I'm gonna take all of the insults that you're gonna lobby at me, and I'm gonna lobby them at myself before you can do it. And it's a way to kind of deactivate your opponent.
Yeah.
It's a tactic that's actually very brilliant and very effective. Like the first thing, obviously, Eminem, he's a total white boy going into the hip hop industry. The first thing anyone, if they're doing a rap battle or they're going to go after him, they're going to call him a white boy. He's a redneck. You live in a trailer, right? That's the first level of attack they're going to use against him. So what Eminem did very smartly was basically, I'm going to use all those. Yeah, I'm a fucking white boy. Yeah, I live in a trailer with my mom. Yeah, yada, yada, yada. He did all of that, and his opponent was left like speechless, like, oh, how do I attack him? There's nothing else left. Chapek kind of needs to do that. Without the vulgarity, obviously. Well, but he needs to do that. He needs to get on the D23 stage and needs to kind of joke about it and make humor about the fact that, I'm not as good looking as Bob Iger. I don't speak as good as Bob Iger. This 12-year-old kid in the front row would probably do a better job hosting this expo than I would. But you know what? I love Disney, and I'm here for you guys. He has to do that self-deprecating humor. It works on a number of levels. Number one, it makes him human. It makes him feel like he's relatable because he's not this media god. He's a person that acknowledges he has faults and flaws. And number two, it totally takes the teeth out of any attack. I mean, how are any of these outlets going to attack Bob Chapek for sucking at his D23 Expo speech when he's making fun of himself? It becomes a lot harder to do that when he's acknowledging he sucks. He's got to do that. He's got to have that kind of that humor and not be too high on his pedestal to kind of make fun of himself. I think if he does that, he'd make some headway with a lot of fans, in my opinion. I
will say this. I think you should send that video over to PR and have that pass that along to Chapek, because I tell you what, because I'm going to the D23 Expo, I want to see if he wants to get fans' attention when they announce him and he walks out on stage, he should come out to I'm the Real Slim Shady. Like that's his theme song. Like I want him to walk out on that stage to I'm the Real Slim Shady, and I bet you he would have people's attention right there off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, he has to, like, obviously there's some things he can't joke about. Like he can't go up there and be like, yeah, I'm a cheap motherfucker. He can't go that far with it, because I think that would be, then you're getting into, but like with his own personal stuff when it comes to
don't crush my dreams, please.
But when it comes to stuff like his speaking ability, his physical appearance compared to Bob Iger, I think these are things that are fun that he can joke around about and he can kind of poke fun at. And I think it would go a long way with the fandom. I really do, because you know what? I still stand by this. As much as Bob Chapek is not perfect, and as much as he makes a lot of mistakes on a business level, I do still think a lot of his hate is personality driven. And we've seen it with Tomorrow and the reactions. The inconsistency, it doesn't lie. I do think if he improves his image in regards to personality, I think the rest will kind of follow, in my opinion.
I think, honestly, to promote Genie Plus, he could always come out like dressed as how Genie was at the end of the Aladdin film, with the Hawaiian shirt, the khaki shorts, the flip-flops, and the goofy hat, the briefcase, the suitcase, going on vacation. Because, I mean, technically, I would, because that's the one thing that I've always took with like with the past CEOs, like how they would even to DeMauro, to his thing, where you're walking with the public, you're talking to them. It's like get done on a personal level rather than just be a corporate face, so to speak.
Right. Get off the script. Get off the script, Chapek, and just be yourself. Because obviously, look, I'm sure Chapek's wife could tell you a million stories about Bob Chapek being a fun guy, funny, humorous, but we don't see that Chapek. We see the scripted corporate guy. Like, just let go a little bit. He should come out there and say, "Hey guys, I'm here at D23, and actually, this was my second." My second option. I was gonna go to Disneyland, but I couldn't get reservations.
Perfect.
Joke around, have a little
perfect.
fun. Have a little fun, and it would bring the house down.
Yeah,
and it would make him more likable. And this corporate thing that he's doing with the scripts and dodging Destination D and avoiding the event and being super defensive and having the corporate press releases do the talking isn't working. I think you just have to be Chapek. I'm sure he's a really cool guy, a nice guy, funny guy. Let the real Chapek shine through. The real Chapek, please stand up. Right, George?
There you go.
The fans can see through it if you're not authentic. Absolutely. So I think it would be in his best interest to do that. I think the other thing that he might need is a win, like doing something that's specifically for the fans, not unlike what Bob Iger did with Al Michaels and Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, right? It's like, do something for the fans.
He has the golden opportunity to do it with this expo coming up. With it being the 100, year anniversary of the company, he has every opportunity to take it by the forgive me for saying this, the bull's balls, so to speak, and kind of like drive with it. And I mean, he would have it.
Oh my goodness gracious. Let's see if I can get something there. Balls to the walls alert, huh? Here's what's up.
Yes.
There it is. Oh man.
There it is. George did it. I had to drop it on him.
That's great. That was perfect.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He really honestly should go, no pun intended, balls to the wall at this expo, because this is his time to shine, because this will be the first expo back, not just with the delay from the Pandy, but also him as the full CEO, so he should really be driven to, kind of get our attention, tell us some things that'll intrigue us, some things that we want to hear. And, and on a PR standpoint, I can imagine the hot mess that the expo is going to be. We're probably going to have to enter the convention center all signing waivers. To talk about a PR nightmare on that end.
Well, I'm hoping the Pandy is well in the rear view when the D23 Expo hits. I think a lot of people, regardless of where they stand on the Pandy and whatever, I think a lot of people are ready to live their lives again. I know Baby Yoda is. He wants to take the mask off. But hopefully the D23 Expo is a normal experience and it's not too crazy with that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Hoping.
We'll see.
I will be on location.
Yeah. Now, George, you're gonna try to get tickets, right? From what I understand.
I was gonna try for the preferred seating for the limited, which was $8.99, which grants you preferred seating to all Hall D23 presentations, which is primarily the big ones, the parks and resorts, the live action animation. But if I don't get that, then I'm just going to purchase just a normal 3-day expo ticket, which is still a discount because I'm a gold member. I'm a gold family member, actually, believe it or not. So everywhere I turn, I'm family somewhere.
Yeah, and Dre, are you planning on making an appearance at the expo or?
Probably not. Probably not. No. I had one appearance at an expo, and one was enough. So I'm good. I will definitely be tuning into whatever live streams they happen to have on that day. But unfortunately, no, I'm gonna be looking at it from a distance.
and Dre, it's funny. I kind of echo your sentiment a little bit. I went one time. To the expo, and it was in 2019, so the last one. And a family member of mine had some tickets, and we got into the studio panel. It was a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like in terms of like these ancillary Disney experiences, like the studio tours, like in Burbank. Anytime you ask, if anyone says, "Hey, you want to go to the studio?" I'm there. You know what I'm saying? I always love going to the Walt Disney Studios. The tour is magic to me, total magic. The D23 Expo wasn't so much. It like the floor exhibits kind of bored me a little bit. The studio thing, the panel was fun, but those are hard to get into. So I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of the expo. I wasn't. And for me personally, I'm more into like the announcements, which you can get online anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but a lot of people love them. And that's great. That's great. It's a cool experience.
And I'm more so coming out just so I can have another excuse to go to Disneyland, of course. And of course, Carl Jr. I need Carl. It's like
you gotta have Carl's in your fix. We got that, George. Don't worry, we got that. It'll be waiting for you.
Yeah,
well, and we're still waiting for that Carl Jr. sponsorship. So
I know. I'm counting the days. I don't know which one I'm counting down faster. The days counting down for Disneyland, or the next time I could have a Carl's Jr. burger. So I don't know.
That's funny. Yeah, it's funny. The other day I actually drove through Carl's. I thought about you the whole time. I was like, oh man, George is he's probably stuck in some snowstorm right now in Blawnox, Pennsylvania, and I'm over here driving through Carl's.
Yes. That sucks. But Trey, I wanted to get your opinion on it because I had asked OG this on a previous recording that. In your opinion, as far as talking about like with the expo, for people who can't go, after that they sell a certain amount of tickets, they run out of the preferred and, they sell as many, to the D23 members. And then Disney kind of like springs up, as a little surprise, as they always do last minute. And they say for a premium price, you can live stream through Disney Plus some of the presentations and panels. Do you think that would be a marketing way for Disney to go as far as being able, after selling all the tickets, but then they could also get a premium price off of the Disney Plus platform to say, hey, for all of you who can't make it out to the expo, you can watch it live on Disney Plus?
That would be a way of doing it. They've not really done anything like that before, though. That speaks to more of a problem that they've had with Disney Plus in general, where they haven't really leveraged that type of technology and service to the point where it probably should be. I mean, I wouldn't be against that kind of an idea. It's just we haven't seen it yet. So maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I would love to see that. I think if you even in the bigger scope of things, if you implemented live TV onto Disney Plus, so look, they own ABC. To have live, the ABC News live on Disney Plus, I mean, that would be a big thing. I think, I mean, if you want to incorporate ESPN, to Disney Plus and bring that in under the Disney Plus umbrella and have live sports on D Plus, that would be a big thing. It could potentially be a big market, and like George said, for the D23 Expo, you can have a live stream, a Disney done live stream for the Expo. I mean, these are huge possibilities. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Do I think they're going to do it? I don't know. I mean, Chapek definitely is kind of feeling the heat a little bit when it comes to D Plus. Subscriber numbers were not that great in the last quarter. He definitely wants to boost those numbers up a little bit. So I think he's open to pretty much anything right now. He's probably on the phone with Brian Robertson, Comcast. Hey, sell your shares of Hulu or your stake in Hulu, because I want to put that on D Plus. He's doing everything right now, I think.
It's that bundle. It's gotta get that bundle. Gotta I don't know. He needs content. So it would be cool if he could leverage those features for D+. I just don't see them doing it, unfortunately. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe.
Well, Chapek, Blubby, 2 words, Dumbo Circus. I'm still waiting on it.
Oh, Dumbo Circus was a great show, and I don't know if that was before your time, Dre, but did you ever check that out on Disney Channel?
That was probably before my time.
It might have been. I think it was like, oh, George, when did that come out? Like 85 or something?
It was like 85 or 86, and then Pooh Corner came out around the same time too. I mean, it's classic to me. But if you go back and look at the Pooh characters on that show, they were wonky. Like they were.
Well, let's before we close it out, because we've been going for a while now. Yeah. I mean, we're gonna cut this, but I'm gonna go ahead and just give you guys Dumbo's Circus. I'm gonna give you. Yeah, you're right. They were wonky, but let me go ahead and bring them on right now because
it was classic Disney Channel for me. It just takes me back to my childhood.
No, me too. I used to watch this show religiously when I was younger, and it was so like in terms of Dumbo, it was not canon. Like I refuse to believe this is canon.
Yeah,
but it was fun nonetheless because Dumbo had like a voice and everything, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun, dude.
Oh,
it was fun. Yeah, all the characters, you know, Dumbo.
Let me see. I remember Dumbo. The lion was Lionel.
And then Barnaby. Wasn't this guy Barnaby?
Was the dog. Yeah, Barnaby was the dog. And then the koala was Sir Dinkum.
Yeah. Wow, dude.
I forget the cat.
I forgot the cat too. Yeah. You're good. You're on point. But yeah, this was Dumbo Circus, Dre. It was a fun show. It kind of had like a Jim Henson vibe to it, I guess. But it was fun. It was a really good children's show, and it lasted only a few years, but many moons ago.
And here's actually a little piece of trivia for you folks, if you even care for it, but I'll throw it out there anyway. The voice of Lionel the Lion is actually Jim Cummings.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Interesting. Well, he does a lot of work for Disney, so yeah, it's surprising, but then again, not too surprising. He did Darkwing Duck, and he's done a Pooh, right? Winnie the Pooh.
He does Winnie the Pooh, Tigger,
Hondo.
Yeah.
Hondo
wow. Wow. A great show. Check it out if you guys can find it, maybe on YouTube. It's not on Disney Plus, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to get the archive of all kinds of Disney stuff on Disney Plus, and we just haven't really.
I'm still waiting for the World's Fair. Like that was so disappointing to me. Like it was on the roster, it had a date.
I know, and they cut it. They cut it from the seam. I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't debut that. Really strange stuff. I'm hoping we talked about this the other day, George, and I'm hoping with the 100th anniversary coming up, they just dump all of it on D+, you know?
Yeah. It'd be cool.
And I think really now they need to, because of the numbers, you know, it's starting to kind of dip down, you know, Disney Plus kind of rose to the occasion because it's brand new, you know, and you have to kind of keep it fresh. But when you start to see those numbers dwindling, you know, it's no hold bar, you know, you just got to go balls to the wall. You have to throw it. You have to go for it.
You got to, man. But hey, look, we're gonna cut this short because Dre is still recovering from the Rona, and I don't want to keep him too long, man. I you've been a trooper, dude. I really do appreciate coming on. I had it a few weeks ago, and I know how that feels. It's draining. So I do appreciate you, brother, coming on. It means a lot.
Is draining. It is. You know, somebody the other day was like, "Oh man, you know." Dre must have glutes of steel because to stand that whole long period of time, and it's just like, you know, I stand every episode, right? I stand every episode. But this time it was particularly draining. You are right about that. I will say, you know, one last thing before we close it out. Sure. The D23 Expo, I think it was like 3 years ago, where they debuted the kind of the introductory contract, the 3-year contract for D23 members or whatever. That's now coming up, and so it's yeah, I would say if you're going to dump anything on Disney Plus, you might want to. The company might want to think about doing it now because those contracts are coming up, and how many of those are going to renew? We'll see.
Yeah, and we mentioned this the other day too, George, where maybe they'll revisit those in September because that is kind of the timeline. I mean, I did the 3-year bundle or 3-year whatever thing. September is only a couple months away from mine expiring, and I think a lot of people's are expiring around that same time, August, September. So yes, I think that they might do that. They might introduce some other 3-year, 4-year kind of.
And I hope they do, because I will add on to that. I do have one more year of a grace period because I also had the sign on with Verizon, which gives you 1 year free of Disney Plus. So I had the 3 years plus the Verizon one. So I essentially got 4 years altogether.
Cool.
Right, okay.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for coming on. Thank you so much. And I'll start with Mr. Freshly Squeezed, Vash Guy. Dre, again, I do want to thank you, brother. I know you don't feel 100%, so it means a lot that you'd come on here. This was a longer show, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, just happy to be here, and this is an interesting topic. I mean, it's PR for the company hasn't been its strong suit the last couple of months, and it was cool to have an actual episode about it. But to continue the conversation, you can talk with me at Bash Sky right there, just like it's spelled. And to see me, I'm on your channel, Orange55, at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then down below, Mr. D23, Disney Family Man 23. George, how you doing today, sir? And if you can let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on once again. Always a pleasure. Love talking this stuff with you fellas. It's a joy. I always look forward to it. Every time I get a text or a message, from Mr. OG saying, we're going to record something or we got something in mind, I'm always happy to jump on and do our thing. But you can find me on my own YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. Also on my Instagram under the same Disney Family Man 23 banner. On Twitter at Disney George. And of course on Orange Grove 55's channel with Citrus Corner, which will definitely look out for our next Citrus Corner episode dealing with the coup de grace of PR issues with the Galactic Star Cruiser. So
oh boy, we didn't even get into that.
It's gonna be a doozy. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below with your opinions on the Disney PR mess in regards to the park side, in regards to the studio side. Everything we discussed today, there's a lot going on here with the Chapek stuff. How should he approach on a personal level that PR? There's a lot to chew on. There's a lot. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about Dumbo Circus? Most importantly, did you guys ever watch that? Comment if you have down below. But I want to thank my guests, Dre and George, again for coming on. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below, like, subscribe, and as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.